husband said how I should have introduced her is that we have 10 treasures of the Historical Society. Well, as you see, this is going to backfire because we have more than 10 items.
Math was never my subject.
He said that I should introduce you and say we actually have 11 treasures. And Carolyn is number 1.
Yeah. Well, and Connie Sweetser would be number 12. Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
Trying to narrow down, like I just said to Linda, math was never my subject, so I've tried to group it in 10 groups here so that you can get a history of 202 years of Cumberland history, and we have some wonderful artifacts at the Historical Society, and trying to narrow it down to 10 or 10 groups is a little bit difficult, so we'll start back here. eBay was one of my favorite things, and I this group of glass plate negatives from the late 1800s and early 1900s. And when I got them, I took them in town and had them made up into pictures. And as you can see, they're just as clear as if I had taken the pictures yesterday. So they were good. Very fragile, but very good. The gentleman from whose estate it came was Silas Rideout. Now, I suppose I should say Silas Rideout. That's a good old Maine name, don't you know? And he lived in the house that's kind of kitty-corner from the monument in the center of town. He was a wheelwright and he did furniture as well. And that's him coming from the back of his house. And that's a desk that he made. We're fortunate enough to, it was very popular after the Civil War for towns to have a town band. I know Yarmouth had a big one, and Cumberland did. And in August, they'd have a big meet, like the Battle of the Bands in the 1800s. And we're fortunate enough to have a uniform and the kepi hat and a picture with all of the men and the drumstick, and all of the men in the picture are identified with the instrument that they played. That's a treasure in itself, because a lot of pictures we get are unidentified. So to have that plus the instrument that these gentlemen played is truly a gift. I'll leave that out there. So when I finish, you can come up and take a look at all these things. Got a variety of pictures of schools here. This is the Tuttle Road School in 1923. It's now a private residence across from the Tuttle Road Church. This one is our building, 1899. Lucy Loring was the teacher, and they're identified as well, so that's a gift. I think I have two of Mabel I. Wilson's granddaughters here tonight. That's Mabel digging the first shovelful of dirt for the Mabel I. Wilson School. We know the E.K. Sweetser School, 66, because the school was built in 67. These two pictures here are of our building, and the teacher is E.K. Sweetser, Ezra Knight Sweetser. So we have a picture of him, two different pictures of him. This was a school that was over on Greeley Road. across from Springbrook Farm. And the school is actually in Yarmouth. If you know the map of Greeley Road, it goes back and forth because when Cumberland decided to secede from North Yarmouth in 1821, if you lived on Greeley Road, you had the option of staying with the old town of North Yarmouth or going with the new town of Cumberland. And then in 1849, when Yarmouth decided to become its own town, that same thing happened. So it zippers back and forth. It's really an interesting line. It was a very popular photograph form in the 20s. And we have several of these. It's a panoramic view. That's the entire school, the students and staff of Greeley Institute in 1923. And there are some names here that would be familiar. Phil Chase is one. Dick Sweetser's another. There's a bunch of them. Christine Larson, who is John Chandler's mother. So this one, I don't happen to have the identity of the people back there, but we have several others, different years, that they are identified.
Did you say Phil Chase was in 1923? He was born in 1927.
Who was?
Phil Chase. Did you say Phil Chase?
That looked like him, but it isn't. Okay.
But he was born in 1927.
Yep. But that's Mr. Crandall and Mr. Merrill. I mean, the whole staff is there. What's that?
Maybe it's later than 23.
No, it says 1923. And that's the school there. Now, the last two classes, there were the full classes at the what is now our building. Hope Foster, Miss Shane at the time, was the teacher, and she did these two classes. This would have been the class of 1960, because that's Donnie Ronsley down there, and this would have been the class of 1961. It's taken in 1950. And then they moved down to, this would have been the class of 61. They moved down to what is now the Drown Road, or anybody know what the original name of the school was supposed to be? It was supposed to be the Cumberland Elementary School, but a lot of us know it as the Dump School, because in the infinite wisdom of the town fathers at the time, the land was free, it belonged to the town. Well, let's build a school right there and put those kiddos right there next to the dump. They can play with the rats. This was a very popular art form, and doing a little bit of research on it, this goes back 8,000 years, this art form. But this was done by Harry Blanchard, who was quite an artist. He lived, this is the Springbrook Farm house, where Kay Blanchard's, Kay Fowler's daughter lives now. And he lived there, and we've got some other paintings of his. Got a lovely one of some of the Jersey cows out in the pasture. And in keeping with the dairy farming in Cumberland, this is a catalog of the Broadmoor Farm, which is now Dara's, the coffee shop. Broadmoor Farm, he was one of the Blanchards that raised Jersey cows, because he was brother to the Fred Blanchard, who had the Jersey cows, Springbrook Farm. And this is a lovely catalog of the cows that he sold. He and his brother, George, his father, George Blanchard, and his brother also owned an agricultural supply place in Portland. This would be a butter mold. In fact, Springbrook Farm, this isn't their butter mold, but there was a farmer's market in Portland and they would take their goods in there, their fruits, vegetables, meat, and butter. And they had Jersey cows have a higher butter fat content in their milk, but they don't produce as much as Holstein cows do. So their butter was supreme. At the Cumberland Fair Museum, they've got the butter paddle thing in the museum up there. That's quite an operation. This is a series of postcards of different. We've got quite a collection. I've got the box here of postcards. It was a very popular thing in the 20s and up to have pictures, to take a picture and then make it into a postcard. This is a picture, and I can tell that it's 1913 because in back of it, this is the Congregational Church. You can see the start of the Redmond's Hall, which is now the C.V. and Mahar Engineering Building, and that was built in 1913. So it's the start of that. And you can also see the horse sheds beside it. This is a series of postcards down on Route 88. This is where the King's Highway comes out onto Route 88. The house right there is the house where David Spear Jr. and Sr. lived. Town Landing Road was the access to their shipyard. Believe it or not, we had a shipyard here in Cumberland. They built 58 ships. Yeah, so inquiring minds want to know. We also had, Cumberland was fortunate enough to have 2 trolley lines and 2 railroad lines in the town. And this is a picture of, this is a colorized photo, postcard. This is called Oxtail Curve, and it's where Schooner Rocks comes out onto Route 88. And down where the West Custago Inn, it's now the security place, where to go over to Cousins Island, they called that Rubberneck Curve because you'd hear the trolley coming, you had to rubberneck out to see if the trolley was coming. This was down where the tennis courts are down in Wildwood Park. There was a restaurant. Because of the trolley line, that was a popular go-to place. You could come out of the city. You could get a full New England seashore dinner that would be a lobster, a bag of clams, an ear of corn, a boiled potato, a boiled egg, and a dessert like a strawberry shortcake or a blueberry shortcake or blueberry pie, all for 25 cents. You can't get it for $25 now. And this was an interesting one. We got a whole series of pictures. This was on 1914 when they paved the road, Route 88, which in 2014, Story Brothers was paving Route 88. So when I got these postcards, I had to bring them up to Mr. Shea to say, see, it took 100 years to get another coat of tar on there. I don't know if he appreciated that or not. You know, so be it. This is in the center of town. This is, and you can see it better when you come up and take a look. This is where the apartment house is now that's kind of kitty-cornered from the church. And at the time, it was a store and the post office. And then this little white house that's right beside it is where the Cumberland's first telephone office was. And if you look at the house now, there's a little L towards the center of town, and that's where the telephone office was. And we've got a picture, and this is another one of those treasure things of the first telephone operator, and I also have a picture of the last telephone operator. So we've got the Alpha and the Omega. Where the Atlantic Federal Credit Union is now, that was Chase's greenhouse. And this is the store that I was just talking about in the other picture. It passed through many hands as a store and a post office until Morris Harding bought it in either the late 50s or early 60s and made it in a complete, there's 4 apartments there. This is a wonderful picture too of the Cumberland Center baseball team, and they're identified and what position they played. So that's a great one as well. We also have 7 later town baseball uniforms that were Cap Bragg's, and they have a sponsor on the back of them, so that's kind of a neat thing too. The little house that was in the Center Church Cemetery was the hearse house, and that is actually what was Cumberland's hearse that was housed in there. And after they didn't need it anymore, they sold it to a place in Freeport, at Allen's Lookout in Freeport. I don't know where that is. The hearse itself is no longer in existence because Irvin Morrow, who was an auctioneer, was going to auction it off and didn't, and the boys in the area decided to be a fun place to play, and so it's buried up there, which is appropriate for a hearse, I guess. This is down at Poland's Corner where Middle Road and Tuttle Road meet. And this house is still standing. It was it was a store and a post office. And it's Poland's Corner because halfway up the hill between where Middle Road crosses and where the Tuttle Road Church is, a gentleman by the name of Charles Poland, he and his wife had a store, and them and their 9 children had the store there, so it was named for Charles Poland. This is another view taken a little bit back before the bridges and Route 1 and the interstate came in. The original name for Route 88, that was the original Route 1. And this is a picture of the Ladies' Aid at Tuttle Road. They were having some kind of a bake sale or something, and those are all identified. Okay, I'm going to sit for a minute. My knees don't like to stand up too long. This, I thought at first, was a butter mold. But in looking at it, I thought, no, that's an odd size for a butter mold. It collapses because you can flip this up and it comes all apart. It's a soap mold. And this, they would put the mixture in there and tamp it down to make a bar out of it. And those would be sold at the, in town in Portland at the farmers markets. This came from the Seek, and it's funny because there was another one too. And talking with Ronnie Seekins, Judy Gagnon and I went up to see what it was that they wanted to get rid of, and we got a whole bunch of stuff, including Norma Seekins' wedding gown. That is another treasure, but I didn't want to take, because I didn't have something to cover it up. But you can come to the Historical Society and see it. So anyway, this other soap mold, Ronnie didn't know what it was, and I said at first, "Oh, that's not a butter mold." I said, "I know what it is. It's a soap mold." So he said, "Well, I don't know what the H is for." And I said, "Harris." That was a family name, Harris. And he said, no, the name is Ferris, because that cemetery that's on the corner of Bruce Hill Road and Blanchard Road is the Ferris Cemetery. I said, if you look back, the Harrises and the Ferrises got married. Well, he didn't know that. So the carnation industry in Cumberland was a big one. We had the 4 greenhouses, the 2 Chase's greenhouse. One of them was where the current fire station is. The other one was where the credit union is now. There was Garceau's up on Blanchard Road, and there was Small's greenhouses, my father-in-law's place. They brought it from Jenkins's. They had 2 huge greenhouses, and down here in the trees you can't really see it, but there was another smaller one, and then the house was here. The house is no longer it's where Mayberry Lane is now, just beyond Sweetzer's, and the house itself is over in Freeport. I can remember seeing it go down by my house. There, and of course, boys being boys, and George, my husband, and his brother Francis are 9 years and 6 years older than their sister, okay? So their great trick was to go to the end of this greenhouse, which was 350 feet long, and say, hey, Lorraine, come on up. We got something to show you. So she'd go toddling up there. In the meantime, they're beating feet around here to go down to the house, and they'd stand down here, and when she got up to the end, they'd say, Lorraine, the woodchucks are going to get you, and listen to her scream all the way down to the house. Did not go over well with their mother. But, you know, boys will be boys. Okay. And keeping up with the chicken and egg industry, and there were several poultry farms, including a turkey farm in Cumberland. This is a postcard of the Mel and Mabel Wilson farm, and this would have been an egg carrier. And I think that came from the Maloney farm. You've heard the expression, good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. Well, this is the sleep tight part of it. I'll explain that in a minute. Bugs, don't let the bed bugs bite. A lot of back in the day when you had a rope bed, the mattresses were made out of straw or even corn cob. That must have been an incredibly uncomfortable mattress. Hence the bed bugs. Won't go any further than that. So this is called a bed key. And if you had a rope bed that Father probably made, and instead of having slats, they had the rope. Well, after a while, the bed rope, and he probably made the rope, it would sag. So you get up in the morning and your back is killing you. So you need to tighten up the rope. And you'll see when you come up here, the rope would go through here, and you'd twist it and turn it and twist it and turn it to make the bed tight. And there again, the bed bugs were another issue altogether. After the Civil War, and we had a lot of men, and I had the number in my head a long time ago, but that's gone, as well as a lot of the rest of my thinking. This is after the Civil War in 1866. The Grand Army of the Republic was established. It lasted until 1956, so it was 90 years old. And it was kind of a precursor to perhaps the AMVETS or the American Legion or something like that. And Kay Fowler's great-grandfather, Francis Weld Blanchard, also known as Frank, this is him, this is his hat. So I was thrilled that Kay gave that to us. And he served in the Navy in the Civil War, as did Louisville and William Merrill. Louisville Merrill lived on Blanchard Road, on Main Street, 2 houses down from the Congregational Church. And William Merrill lived over, I don't know if any of you knew Dr. Berkovich, the house on Wynn Road across, kind of kitty corner across from the school that had the roof ripped off of it. They are repairing it there. But the monument in the center of town was established and paid for by William Merrill's son, Edwin, who was very proud of his father and uncle for having served in the Civil War. And so he had that monument erected in honor of them. So, and Barbara Garso and her sister Margelia, who always made sure that you knew that she was the youngest one, laid the flowers. And when they made the new monument up at Mosside Cemetery, we had the ceremony there at the old monument, and Barbara and Margelia got to ride in the chief's car from there to the new Veterans Memorial, and you'd have thought they were the Queen of the May. They were being that. It was fun. This is a history of the Grand Army of the Republic. You have to say Gerald, because grandfather. Again, postcards, what they call real photo postcards of cabins and restaurants up in West Cumberland where Blackstrap Road and Route 100 cross. There was these pictures down here of the Pride's Corner Tea Room. The tea rooms in the 20s were very popular in Maine. In fact, Bill Kenny and Kathy wrote a book about tea rooms in Maine, not just in Cumberland. And that was about where their little brew-through place is. And then there were cabins, because the trolley line came up from Portland to Auburn, Lewiston and Auburn, in that direction. And the other trolley line, I mentioned earlier that there were 2, went from Portland up to Brunswick. And so in the heat of the summer, the trolley station was there just below where Bud's gas station is, heading towards Falmouth. And people would get off there, get out of the heat of the city. Of course, there might still be horse and buggy things in there, so the smell of the city in the summer time. And they'd come out and within walking distance be able to go over to Forest Lake, and which, by the way, was originally called Goose Pond. But then in the 20s, they resurveyed it and discovered that it was big enough and deep enough to be a lake, so that it became Forest Lake instead of Goose Pond. So that's why there's the Goose Pond Road there. And across from Skillen's greenhouse, the house that sits kind of kitty corner, I think it's the Highland Lake Road, where John Willis lives, it was the main cabin for one set of cabins for people to stay if they wanted to stay for more than just the day. And there was another set of cabins in that area somewhere. Where Cop Motors is now was an exotic animal farm. And I told Ronnie Kopp one day, I said, yeah, with you guys, it's still an exotic animal farm. So, but there's those pictures there. This was another purchase that I got on eBay. These are called trade cards. They're not really postcards, but they were advertising. And these are originals, 1887. And Cumberland Fair at the time was a 2-day fair, September 21st and 22nd. I've got another one. When we had the 150th fair 2 years ago, we took those and made postcards out of them. They were a very popular item to go. And Link Merrill has one that I don't have. I'm going to sit again. This is Penelope Martin. Penelope Martin's father, William Martin, was an English merchant, and he bought a piece of land from John Powell. The Powell Road, there's a utility building closer to Route 88. It's a brick building, and I believe that's where the house was located. William and his wife and their son and 2 of their daughters came over and stayed with him. Penelope stayed back and furthered her education. She lived with her aunt. When she finished her education, she came over, and she and the 2 sisters created a school for girls, which was highly unheard of. You had to be probably from a wealthier family to be able to go to any kind of schooling at all, to learn to read and write. Mostly, if you did go to a school, you learned how to do fancy needlework like this, or painting, or needlework. But Penelope and her sisters taught geography and higher math and so forth. And it was the more prominent families, even from Portland, including a Longfellow, who attended the school. It got to be so big that they had to move into Portland. That house is no longer standing. And Penelope, there's a picture here in this article. The treasure that we have, not only her picture, that's obviously it's not a photograph, in 1784. But we've got Betty Sweetser Baxter was able to get, because they were at the Payson house, and was able to acquire the letters that Penelope and her father exchanged. So we've got a whole series of them. And Betty transcribed them because the script, though beautiful, is a little difficult to read. This is 1784. It is just a beautiful a piece of work, and we've got the whole set. And so Betty took all those and created this book, An Ornament of Grace. And what she did was had the original letter there, and then she transcribed it so you could read it. She did wonderful things. Some of the pieces from her students, I know there's one down in the famous Winterthur Museum down in Brandywine, Pennsylvania. I think Maine Historical Society has another, at least one piece from Penelope's school. So there's still, from almost 300 years ago, 250 years ago, that they exist. I've kind of run out of things to say. Do you have any questions about any of this stuff? You're more than welcome to come up and look. I would love to have you come up and check these things out, because these truly are treasure. And like I said, I think the biggest treasure here in Cumberland is Connie Sweetser. I was able to get her to be a judge for me at the exhibition hall for the apple pie contest. And the funny story about that, we were able to get the Canadian pulling teams to come down. It's been a long time since we've been able to have them down here because of some, it wasn't mad cow disease, but something that they had. And then, of course, COVID hit. And so anyway, that was a big draw. So we took the 4 apple pie winners over to the arena where the pulling, before the pulling started, to auction them off. Well, Cumberland Fair is a big proponent and sponsor of Make-A-Wish Foundation. We got $500 for the 4 pies. The top pie got $300. And I said it was good that we had they were both Canadian, the 2 Canadian brothers got the first and the second prize, have 2 Canadian brothers who'd been in the tea slightly, and we're having fun bidding against each other. So that's why we got, and then we sold, yeah. So we had fun with that. So please come up and take a look at these things, and if you have any questions, come on up.
Thank you.
Well,